Do you wanna know what's going round? See what's the talk of the town on Real Talk on the radio today.
And welcome to Real Talk Radio 97.5. You're listening to KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Remax Realty Mobile Tower right here in Northport, Florida. It's a beautiful day out, and I want to send a special shout out to our sponsors, Lions Title and Trust, Remax Palm Realty, and also Jason and Katie Box with Hardin Insurance Group. All of them are major sponsors, and anyone out there like Zio's Pizza, who is a sponsor of our radio station in any way, shape, or form, we thank you too. I've got a very special guest in the house, Chief Brian Gorski. How are you doing there, sir?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So, give us a little insight to who you are and how long you've been around.
Well, I've been around for quite some time. I've been in the field of fire rescue for 50 years, and here since the early 60s on Siesta Key. It's where I grew up. And, and I basically had the interest in becoming a firefighter paramedic back in 1975. And my time employed with the in the beginning around December 75 at the Trail Fire Department, is known as Sarasota County Fire Department. It was originally made up of a bunch of independent fire districts, which have over time merged to become the Sarasota County Fire. And I worked up the career ladder at Sarasota County from firefighter paramedic to lieutenant to captain to division chief to assistant chief, and then chief. I became fire chief of that department in 1999, and then I retired in 2009. And about 3 months into that retirement, I became the fire chief down in Inglewood Fire.
I think I lost you, Chief. Well, Chief will come back on here in a minute. We did lose him, unfortunately, so we're still live on the air. Chief Gorski's been around for 50 years. He's come back on now. And hey, Chief.
Cut off, I think.
Yeah, we did. And that's okay. I just told everyone that you've been around for about 50 years, and you can go ahead and continue on from Inglewood.
All right. Well, I was at Inglewood for about 3 years, and while I was there, Manatee County recruited me to come up to Manatee County, which I was the fire chief there for about 8 years, a little over 8 years. To do some things up there to integrate emergency medical services into the fire service, and also to take over the hazmat response for the whole county, which I did all. And when I left Southern Manatee, about 2-3 weeks into that, Chief Titus called me and wanted me to come down to Northport to be his EMS chief. So I've been there since 2021, towards the end of COVID, and getting ready to leave here in April.
And where are you heading now? I'm hoping it's retirement.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've got 2 grandkids, and I'm going to spend time with them. I got stuff to do around the house, so enjoy life. 50 years is a long time.
For you. 50 years is a lengthy service to the community.
Yep, enjoyed every minute of it.
Fantastic. And you know what? Now you get to stay healthy and enjoy your grandkids. You mentioned Chief Titus. What's it like working under Chief Titus at Northport Fire Department?
It's great because he doesn't micromanage. He basically, sets the goals and then basically allows us to do what we need to do to accomplish. As one example, City of Northport Fire Rescue Department has got an ISO rating of 1. The score goes from 1 to 10, 1 being the best. They achieved that, about 8 years ago, probably a little longer. And now his goal is to get the organization accredited. So in the 3 years that I was there, I was able to get their emergency medical services accredited through what's called CAS accreditation, which is an agency that accredits, EMS services. And just so you know, there's over 400 EMS agencies in the state of Florida, and there's only 20 of us now that carry that accreditation.
That's crazy. It's there's some. I say this all the time, and people get critical of me because I back our city so much, but there's a lot of greatness within our city we're doing, and to be one of the 20. How many fire departments are out there?
Yeah. There's over 400 licensed emergency medical services in the state, and only 20 of us have got that level of accreditation. Which is, like I said, it's really good.
Well, that's a major kudo to our organization as a whole.
Right. It validates all of our processes that we put forth, our standard, and basically in patients from cardiac arrest to strokes to trauma victims, and it's all validation that we say that we do save lives. It definitely shows it.
Well, that response time, we sat through the fire station. Gosh, you and I sat at basically at the same table.
Strategic planning.
Yeah,
The strategic planning.
Yeah, the strategic plan. That was one. It was very interesting, and two, it's the level of commitment that you, as an organization, all of you have put forth through Chief Titus, of course, and the governing body of which you're part of, as far as the leadership goes. But you guys are all committed to excellence, and even with that strategy session, it was building of the future, wasn't it?
That's correct. It's looking at where you're at today and where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, and setting goals to get there.
There's a lot to be said with having a game plan and staying set within it. When you came here in 21, the game plan was to get accredited. How long did it take us to get that accreditation?
It took me a little over a year to go through all the standards, gather documents, create new policies, to implement new policies. So a little over a year. And then when you submit the application, you're put on a schedule for actual people that come down to do a site review of your organization. They go through all your documents. They interview everybody from the medical director to personnel to make sure that what you said on paper, you truly are doing. And we knew going into it that we were going to do extremely well. The only weakness that we had, which was one little piece that I already knew, was about measuring extreme temperatures during summer and winter for medications and IV fluids. And so when they got done with their site review, they had said to us that we did extremely well, but we need to, come up with a solution. Well, we already had a solution. It just was waiting on it. We had placed the order, and these are wireless. They're called temp sticks. They're wireless, and you put them in the back of the ambulance and all the advanced life support fire trucks, and it constantly monitors the temperature, records it into a dashboard. And basically, medications and IV fluids have temperature ranges. They have a low range and a high range. And this allows us to get alerts way before it reaches any of those extremes so that you can take action to prevent damage to medications. And what I mean by damage is that when a medication gets above its temperature or below, it can rapidly deactivate the effect of that medicine if you gave it to a patient. So we achieved that literally within weeks, and submitted the documentation, and we got full accreditation right away.
Well, there's something to be said about all that, because, Chief is always concerned in public comment about response time. We've got some really difficult times coming our way with response times and rerouting with Price Boulevard, and a lot of these sessions that you guys have, they're valuable on assessing, keeping those call times down. I go back to Ian, and I had that conversation with Chief Titus, and one of the things he mentioned was that Ian, with the bridges being out, actually was a good dry run for Price Boulevard being redone, and how to reroute and keep their response times down. The response times lead to greater outcomes. How serious are you guys looking at the rerouting of calls with Price Boulevard getting ready to start?
They, like we did with the end, they kind of anticipated from history that there potentially could have been problems on Price prior to Ian hitting. So what they did is they double staffed extra units at both Station 84 and 83, which are basically on the east side of Northport, or the east side of the city. And then with that, letting dispatch know that if calls are occurring, that then we have to move units into those areas. And the way to do that, which takes a little bit, you speed up the process, but the only route to get to those areas then is going to be off the interstate or off 41, and then go north onto Toledo Blade, or one of those other streets that would run north-south. So, I mean, they're looking at it. Like you said, it was a good drill with Ian because it was real. We had to live it. And you're right, it does affect outcomes. I mean, from, the majority of our call volume is emergency medical services calls, like 85%. But like right today, we got a bunch of brush fires going on. They're small, but if we didn't have units in those stations, or we were cut off, I mean, brush fires can rapidly grow in their size, and next thing you know, it can consume blocks, and then with that, it can damage houses or even destroy houses. I think one thing that Northport could do, and prior to that construction starting, though, again, is more education to the public about what's going to happen, and that there could be a potential delay. But some things that we've been doing too that help on the medical side is doing a lot of classes to the public on how to control bleeding, but most importantly, in cardiac arrest situation, hands-only CPR, because that's the most important thing. If somebody doesn't have a pulse, they can sustain life until we get there. Proven fact.
And you're right about the public awareness. I know the city is working diligently on coming up with different ways of doing that. Communication team and Jason Bartolone and his team really trying to come up with some creative ways to attack social media with some insight. But I think the biggest thing is that, I'm going to shout this out a little bit too. I think there has to be some responsibility thrown on the citizens themselves when they know that there are these major projects coming up. They should look for some resources and get themselves educated on what's going to happen to them. not meaning that the city should not take responsibility, but I think there's equal opportunity there for the citizens to engage and at least be aware of things and be prepared. That CPR classes, you guys do those, and other organizations do those. Uh, I've got 27 years medical. I will promise you, if I need to do CPR, I'm going to get it done, and I'm not going to hesitate at all when it comes to it. But there are people out there that aren't educated, maybe have some fear about doing those things. Taking those classes does help take a lot of that fear out too, doesn't it, Chief?
Oh, absolutely. And American Heart Association completely has changed the CPR to make it so easy for the public. Basically, there's only basically two steps. The first step is call 911, and then start doing compressions. There's no mouth to mouth. You just do compressions as fast as you can. And then obviously if somebody comes up to help, you can then alternate between people doing compressions. A lot of great changes have been made to get more of the public involved with just that alone. I know our local hospital, Sarasota Memorial, does a lot of education for stroke prevention and education in the Northport area, and that's another great learning resource for that type of an emergency.
And that the combination that we have now in our city, and I've never asked Chief this, but I have asked him about the fact that we're EMS firemen on every truck, and so we're performing at a much greater standard, I believe, than most fire departments out there. You said that we're in the 20 out of 400 with the certification, but do you know that do you know if other fire departments themselves run a department like we do, with everyone being EMS certified, ready to go?
Yeah, pretty much everybody does that. They make it as a minimum requirement to be dual certified. If you want to be a firefighter, you need to be EMT. Fire college now starts teaching that. But it goes one step further than what you're saying. Even though the fire departments employ dual certification, EMT, firefighter, paramedic, it's the department itself, because example, like in Manatee County, those departments, they are first responders. They don't transport. They just basically go and get to the emergency as quick as they can in a fire truck, and the ambulance comes from the county, which is a single certified individuals that the county employs. So you've got two entities going to the same call, which are the firefighters, which are cross trained, and then you've got single situation is like in Employer County. So what I'm getting at is there's a lot of organizations that have it separated, where they don't have them together. Northport does. City County's got them together. City of Venice does. Inglewood is separate because it literally provides first response medical, but either Sarasota County Fire's ambulances or Charlotte County's ambulances go to the same call to transport the patient.
Okay. Well, having that dual certification, that didn't used to be. I'm going to go back in the days, because of 50 years. That wasn't the standard when you started, was it?
It was in Sarasota, but not other counties. When I started as at South Trail, you had to be a firefighter. That was even before paramedic.
Wow.
But other places, you are exactly right. You just had to be a firefighter. That's it.
Right. There
are some places still. there are some places still that they have fire. Well, I shouldn't say in Florida, but other states where literally they're just a firefighter, and medical services is provided by somebody else in its entirety. It could be county based or hospital based, and the fire department doesn't even go unless it's an accident, a vehicle accident. Which, you know, you got people that could be trained, cross trained, that could go get to that call within minutes, where, you know, ambulances are kind of spread out and tied up because they're so busy. So we're lucky. We are very lucky to have the system that we have.
Well, and you know, even if we talked about vehicles for a second, we are we're not full of ambulances here. That I think that's also the beauty is when you have an organization like ours and it's run like this, your focus is on everyone doing everything, and so the
That's
specific
right.
trucks also change the outcomes too, don't they?
Absolutely. Literally every fire truck in Northport is a paramedic engine licensed for advanced life support. So, as one example, let's use my station 81. If that rescue is tied up on a call, the next available advanced life support ambulance comes from a distant station, but they dispatch that engine to get to that call, which gets there first and arrives with paramedic and life-saving equipment. That's extremely important.
Well, it goes into the response time to save lives, and the quicker that you guys can get
Right.
there, even if someone is doing CPR, the quicker you guys get there, the better the outcomes are most times, right?
That's correct. That's correct. As an example, again, if somebody who's in cardiac respiratory arrest and their rhythm, let's say, is what's called ventricular fibrillation, the key to that is once you start doing compression is to fibrillate them, to shock them as soon as possible. And literally, the faster that you can shock a person, the greater chance for survival.
Right.
And that's the key to this, because every minute that goes by that you don't shock, the chances of resuscitation decreases 10%. So in 10 minutes, it goes to zero.
You know, it's crazy, and we are blessed. I know we are blessed here, because we've been very attentive on all of our first responders being prepared at every level. I've talked with, you know, deputy chief about the fire or the police department and how they have their special tactics down pat, and you know, the drone units and the specialties that they do with electronics. That changes a lot of things for them, and you know, the fire department themselves, in the conversation with you and also with Chief Titus, you guys are focused on outcomes, you're focused on timing, you're focused on the right machines. You're still staying technology ready, aren't you?
That's correct. Um, the latest and greatest on the medical equipment from, you know, the defibrillators that do everything, from, you know, they do 12 lead, 15 lead EKG, saturated oxygen levels, vital CO2 levels. They do everything to, like the laryngoscopes that we're about to go to. We've got some other videoscopes. We're going to the next level of videoscopes that literally document the actual procedure of you putting a tube into a person's lungs. So, I mean, it's really high-tech stuff.
Well, intubation is always the toughest thing to do in a hospital setting, let alone in a
Yeah.
emergency situation out on the road. You know, the technology has come a long way, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I started the screen monitor was only,
Where
and it only displayed one rhythm. today, it's actually 12 inches across, and you can actually view your whole 12 leads of a heart to see if the person's having a heart attack. It's unbelievable.
Right. And that's technology across the board. And you guys have to go to seminars and education, uh, uh, even the educational seminars. You have to attend those.
Yeah.
Staff does
Well,
too,
the
don't they?
training never ends. You're constantly changing because the field's changing. As one example, this past year, the way we communicate to the hospitals when we're transporting patients, we used to utilize the radio system, the 800 megahertz system. You had to wait your turn. And when busy, you actually call and say, "Hey, this is Rescue 81. We're en route with a 60-year-old chest pain, blah, blah, stuff like that." Well, today, the state of Florida has implemented an initiative to use what's called Pulsera, and we jumped on it right away. In fact, we are the first on it in our area, and it's an app that goes on their iPad. So, like when we're transporting to Sarasota Memorial Northport or Sarasota Memorial Venice, we do it through the iPad. But what we do is it's a text message, and in turn, that we can take a picture of the patient or actually let the patient talk to the doctor live. We're doing right here, and give direction. But and then when you send that text, it's instant, and then you get an instant response right back. Take them to room 372 or something like that. Whereas before, you were kind of waiting in line. Now we're slowly working our way towards the critical side of that. Like right now, for like trauma alerts, cardiac, stroke alerts, we're still calling to activate the team, but by radio. But now what they're doing, those applications on that Pulsera, so that the team will get that alert, and they'll be waiting for you when you arrive in that emergency room.
We, for some reason, we keep going back to response time. And whether it be on the road or in a hospital setting, the minutes that you're talking about, for some, are very critical, aren't they?
That's correct. Yep. It is, especially with strokes and STEMI alerts, heart attacks, because, for every minute that goes by, there's a blockage of an artery in the brain that causes death of the brain tissue. Same thing with the heart tissue. As soon as we can recognize that emergency, call the alert, activate the team, get you there as quick as you can. They have medications that can dissolve the clot more. In the heart case, they get right to the cath lab, find the block, put a stent in, and you go home the next day. Same thing with strokes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, this is interesting because most people, I'm going to say this, most people that are out there in this world right now, being a fireman is, hey, you're just there, you're addressing fire, you're not really talking about, the EMS side of it, like we are right now, knowing that every unit is ready to roll. But it's more advanced than that, because now it's with technology again improving. It's taken the minutes and shaving minutes off of opportunities in transit, and also at the hospital level, whether it be a trauma unit or a cardiac arrest unit, at the hospital being prepared. All those things are, I used to work in the hospital, and we would have a trauma alert overhead, and we'd all be prepared for it. But having data and that information from an EMS, in a much faster and more fluid way of giving it, I think there's a huge advantage to that.
There is, and then the other thing too, with, like, since you were talking about the trauma piece of it, go back 50 years, we didn't have trauma centers here on our West Coast. They existed on the East Coast, but not West. And then as time went on, those that were on the East Coast were closing down, and you may remember it was because of not medical malpractice insurance. That's when that medical malpractice insurance. And then basically, Florida, I want to say it was like 1978, 79. State of Florida only had, in the whole state, only had like 6 trauma centers throughout the state of Florida. I mean, literally, we're 67 counties, of which 3 of those were in the Metro-Dade area, but nothing else existed. And literally, like if we had somebody hit by a car, somebody in a car accident, gunshot, stabbing, or whatever, we take them into the local emergency room. You know, there's not much they could do because they didn't have dedicated people to handle those. A surgical team, a CAT scan, just different things. They didn't have that dedication. You know, thank God Sarasota Memorial upgraded to a level 2 trauma center. And that's where we take all our trauma patients, and we're fortunate to have a helicopter at our station so that when we do have serious traumas, adult pediatrics, we can send them to the trauma centers.
You
Because
know,
the faster they get there, remember the golden hour,
yep.
the golden
That's,
hour to get the surgery hour.
you know, having a level 2 trauma center within an hour or 45 minutes of us, I guess, is part of it. But when Sarasota Memorial put their emergency room access on Toledo Blade, that was a huge push, one by commissioners here, and a really huge push from Dr. Lee Gross. I used to listen to his stories. He was a huge proponent of getting Sarasota Memorial to put that ER on Toledo Blade. How big is that a piece for the fire department? Because you were here in that transition time for that unit. What difference did that make to you guys?
Oh, it was huge because prior to that hospital being built, the emergency room, freestanding, they're called freestanding emergency rooms, those rescues had to transport either to Charlotte County or to main campus, Sarasota Memorial. Those rescues could have been tied up for greater than an hour just in the transport of it.
Right.
You know, and the city for maybe 2-hour round trip return. And so it was a big advantage to have that freestanding, which today, as it exists, probably about 70% of our transport, we run about 800 calls a month on the average on the medical side. Well, you know, the busy time of the year right now is right now. But anyway, about 70% of those go to North. And the one thing about freestandings, there's Memorial Northport, and again, there's only a couple of these in the state of Florida. It's called stroke ready. So meaning a stroke patient that comes into that facility, they can deal with it. They can give medications. They can identify where the block is. However, they can't admit, so they have to transfer to main campus. But that quick intervention is key to success. Now, what's even better news is that very shortly they're going to be breaking ground during I-75, and you'll have your actual. But I've been after them for a while because even though they're only going to open it with 100 beds, I told them you need to look at your Sarasota Memorial Venice because they opened that on the same way. And what happened? We're overwhelmed. But part of that problem was because Short Point Venice closed in Venice. So they got that influx of the patients there. But they need to build this hospital, which they're going to, that literally be able to expand to over 300 beds. And same thing for the emergency room. When that emergency room is built, that it's going to be built to allow to expand. And that's exactly the that they're going to be building.
So I'm gonna say this out loud because I know you're gonna agree with me. Sarasota Memorial, you're building it too small. Northport is at 97,000. We're going to 250. Build it bigger. It's coming. Brian, I know you're going to come back on here in a second, Chief. Um, all these things that we're talking about right now, they matter to the citizens of Northport. They matter huge. Sarasota Memorial is just one of the hospitals moving in this area. They're also moving to Welland Park. I realize there's a bed share that's happening there. But with that being said, we need to have a much better situation with the growth that we're going to have. And I agree with you, Chief, that Sarasota Memorial definitely needs to look at more than 100 beds because I hate to tell them already.
Yeah,
If
and
they
I think
opened
they
today, it would be full.
yeah, I think they will. Because and the other thing too, if they don't, they're going to lose out because you've got HCA that's interested in moving in, and they're opening up freestandings all over ERs. But remember, I mean, they're great for freestanding, but if you got to be admitted, you're getting admitted a distance away to their mother hospital, as they call it. And so I think it's, hopefully Memorial does do what they said they're going to do.
Well, I'm a huge fan of Sarasota Memorial. When I first moved here back in 2000, my wife and I both worked at Sarasota Memorial. Duncan Findley was the great CEO, and I love that man. I tell a story about him because when I first started there, I guess I'm not a forgettable face, but when he walked in, he remembered my name, called me out. About 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I was watching him in the hallway, and he he was standing near an elevator, and I'm walking towards him, and he's walks over and picks up a piece of paper off the carpet and throws it into the trash can. And I'm thinking, all these staff members that were walking by, he didn't say anything. He led by example. And so when he bent over and picked that up, the pride that that man had in that hospital was huge. And
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect, had a lot of respect for Duncan Findley. And so SMH has always been one of my favorites. And my open heart surgery was done at SMH in downtown Sarasota, and Dr. Fong was amazing, and the whole team there. There's something to be said about having a great EMS service going to the right hospital for great outcomes. Not that you can't get that elsewhere, but man, what a combination.
Yep. No, they are. Memorial basically just had their 100th year anniversary. I don't know if you saw that, but literally they've been in the community for 100 years,
That's
and
amazing.
literally now when you go to main campus. I mean, it's huge because you're just under 1,000 beds. You've got all services they're able to provide, and that's what you need for a community.
It's amazing. I got to imagine that the partnerships that you've seen formed over 50 years, that has to blow you away at times.
Yep, it does. I mean, I've pretty much connected in 3 counties.
We lost him again. His connection is just difficult. I know that you guys can tell that. He's definitely a book of wealth for sure, and we'll get him to come back on here in a second. But we have a lot of things to look forward to as far as our growth, but we have a lot to appreciate from the past. So you're like I told everybody while you were gone for a minute that you're like a book of knowledge there of the history of all this stuff, and just the 3 counties of participation. I kind of saw your grin on your face when you said that. That has to be that's got to be a level of pride for you too.
It is. He is my son. He's a paramedic at the county. My daughter is a trauma physician, trauma sort of memorial. I met my wife a long time ago at the emergency room. She worked for Sarasota Pathology at the
Wow.
time. So, yep.
Man, the connection that you have, I wish this connection with us. We've dropped you like 3 times. I'm not sure what's happening with
Yeah.
cell service right now, but or internet. But you know that to have this conversation with you, I when is your retirement? True retirement?
April 30th.
April 30th. I almost want to do another show with you before then. And maybe we can do that on site somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Because the connections that we've had today have been a little rough, and
Yeah.
and I really want to do something with you that pays tribute to you. I have a lot of respect for you. 50 years is a long time, and we, the citizens of Northport and the surrounding communities that you've served, are blessed to have someone like you.
Well, thank you. And definitely, you got my contact information. Just give me a call.
I absolutely will. And I'm because of the technical difficulties we're having, I don't want to go on right now. We're close to it, but we'll roll into some music. We'll go off the air now, but I want to thank you for taking your time out. But we're definitely going to reconnect, and we'll make sure that the quality's better. It's just unfortunate with the internet connection.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate your time, buddy.
All right. Have a good day.
You too, sir.